Hey guys, tonight we drift away from the noise and chaos of castles and battles, and instead, we find ourselves in the heart of a watery empire. We're going to glide through the canals of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, exploring the ingenious floating gardens, or Chinampas that fed a civilization, but forget the grand temples for now. This journey is about the quiet, green arteries of the city. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a day. Between the notoriously questionable water quality and the sheer number of things that might want to nibble on your toes, it's a far cry from a resort vacation. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is cool and heavy with moisture, clinging to your skin like a damp, soft blanket. Before you, the world is a gentle painting of gray and blue, the edges of everything blurred and indistinct. It's the quiet hour before the sun has decided to show up for work, and a thick mist hangs low over the water, muffling all sound into a soft, distant hum. You are sitting low in a cow, a simple dugout canoe, carved from a single massive log. It is not built for comfort, no padded seats or lumbar support here, but it moves through the water with a silent, confident grace, like a leaf drifting on a current. Your guide, a still silhouette at the stern, dips a long wooden paddle into the dark, glassy water. The sound is a gentle, hypnotic rhythm, a soft thump as the wood enters the lake, followed by a long, whispering sigh as it pulls you forward. You've left the stone heart of Tenochtitlan behind you. Looking back, the faint outlines of its towering pyramids and temples are just ghostly shapes swallowed by the receding mist, their peaks scratching at the pale belly of the pre-dawn sky. That city, a staggering marvel of urban planning, was famously built on an island in the middle of the vast Lake Texcoco, a metropolis seemingly born from the water itself. Historians still argue about the exact population of the city at its peak, with estimates ranging wildly from 200,000 to over 1 million inhabitants, making it by any measure one of the largest and most complex cities in the world at that time. It was a place born from a divine prophecy, the vision of an eagle devouring a serpent, while perched on a noble cactus, a sign from the gods that this unlikely waterlogged spot was where the Aztec people of Mexico were to build their home. As you glide further from the central island, the main channel widens, then narrows again as your guide steers you into a smaller, more intimate waterway. This is where the true nature of the Empire's genius begins to unfold. The air changes. The faint city smells of wood smoke, incense, and cooking fires are replaced by something earthier, greener. You can smell the rich, loamy scent of damp soil, the sharp, clean fragrance of crushed water reeds, and the sweet perfume of some unseen, night-blooming flower. The mist, which had seemed so impenetrable, begins to thin, revealing the world around you in slow, teasing patches. To your left and to your right, long, rectangular islands of an impossible, vibrant green emerge from the water. This is your first true glimpse of the Chinampas. They are not floating, not in the way a raft does, but are anchored firmly to the shallow lake bed. They are man-made slivers of land, meticulously constructed, that look as though they have sprouted directly from the water itself, forming a vast, intricate grid of canals and gardens. The atmosphere is wonderful for your complexion, a natural, cool humidifier, but you can immediately see how navigating this labyrinth and network without a guide would be a recipe for getting spectacularly and permanently lost. The canoe drifts closer to one of these verdant islands. You can now hear the soft rustle of broadleaves, perhaps maize or squash, and the gentle, lapping sound of water against the woven reed banks that contain the soil. The silence is profound, broken only by the whisper of the paddle, the distant, haunting cry of a heron, and the low thrumming of insects just beginning to stir. This is not a wild, untamed marshland. It is a garden. A massive, intricate, water-bound farm, a testament to a deep understanding of hydrology and agriculture. You feel the canoe slow to a near stop, its smooth wooden nose gently bumping against a soft, mossy bank. Your journey into the heart of these floating gardens has only just begun. The paddle rests across the canoe. For a long moment, there is only the sound of the water, the cool touch of the air, and the quiet, collective breathing of a city and its farmlands still waking up together. Your guide makes no move to get out, nor do they speak. Instead, they simply lift a hand, a slow and deliberate gesture, pointing further down the canal. You follow their gaze. Through a thinning patch of mist, you see a small group of men working in the water. They are building a new Chinampa from scratch, and you have a perfect, silent vantage point from which to watch this ancient act of creation. The scene is one of quiet, focused labor. There are no loud commands, no clanging machinery. There is only the rhythmic sound of effort and the patient transformation of water into land. The process begins with marking out the territory. Two men, standing waist-deep in the cool, still water, are driving long, thick wooden posts deep into the muddy lake bed. Scholars debate the precise tools used for this. Some suggest heavy stone mallets, others point to the possibility of using weighted levers from canoes. Whatever the method, the result is the same. With each powerful, muffled thud, a stake of water-resistant wood is driven further down, anchoring itself in the soft, yielding earth beneath the water. These aren't just random posts. They are meticulously placed, forming a long, perfect rectangle that measures perhaps 30 meters long and only 2 or 3 meters wide. It's a land claim made not with a flag, but with timber and sweat. You imagine trying to get a permit for this kind of work today? The local homeowners association would surely have a few strongly worded letters about unapproved lakeside construction. Once the perimeter is firmly staked out, the real artistry begins. Other workers bring bundles of reeds and rushes, harvested from the marshy edges of the lake. They begin to weave an intricate wattled fence between the posts. It's like watching someone craft a colossal rectangular basket right in the middle of the water. Their hands move with a practiced, unhurried rhythm, twisting and interlacing the reeds to create a dense, sturdy wall. This woven barrier, known as a Chinampas, is the container. It's the vessel that will eventually hold the soil and life of the garden. The sound is a constant, soft rustling, a papery whisper that blends with the lapping of the water against the workers' bodies. This is the moment you realize the term floating garden is a beautiful but slightly misleading bit of poetry. These islands don't float freely. They are firmly anchored, reclaimed land, more like man-made peninsulas accessible only by water. This is a fundamental fact of Chinampa construction. They are permanent, integrated parts of the landscape. They are less like rafts and more like aquatic extensions of the earth itself. They are a solution to a problem: how to create more arable land in a place where dry land was the most precious commodity. The Aztecs didn't just find a place to live. They actively built their environment, shaping the very ground beneath their feet, or in this case, beneath their crops. The men work with a quiet efficiency that speaks of generations of knowledge. There's no blueprint, no laser level. The straight lines and right angles are achieved through practiced eyes and an instinctual understanding of their craft. It is one of those deeply satisfying manual processes that seems almost impossible in the modern world. It's certainly not a weekend DIY project you'd see on television. This week on Garden Rescue, Tenochtitlan, we're reclaiming a section of the lake for a new salsa garden. Just be mindful of the water serpents. As the woven walls grow higher, the rectangular enclosure becomes more defined. It stands like an empty box in the water, a promise of fertility. The structure is remarkably strong, designed to withstand the gentle but constant pressure of the surrounding water and the weight of the soil it will soon hold. The gaps in the weave are tight, ensuring that the precious mud and soil won't simply wash away back into the lake. You notice how the water within the enclosure is calmer, sheltered from the gentle currents of the canal. It's a captured piece of the lake waiting to be transformed. The sun is beginning to climb higher now, burning away the last of the mist. The light catches the droplets of water on the men's skin and on the freshly woven reeds, making them sparkle. The scene is no longer a soft gray dream, but a clear, vibrant tableau of creation. The men have nearly finished the fence. One of them is tamping down the final layer of reeds, his movements precise and economical. The foundational work is almost complete. They have built the bones of the Chinampa. Now it needs its lifeblood, its flesh, and its anchor to the future. Your guide gives the canoe a tiny nudge with the paddle, moving you just a few feet further along the canal, positioning you perfectly to see the next crucial step in this remarkable process, a step involving a very special kind of tree. With a rectangular frame of woven reeds complete, the next and perhaps most vital stage of construction begins. Your guide steers the canoe closer, and you see another worker pulling a small, flat-bottomed boat towards the new Chinampa. It is loaded with slender saplings, their young leaves a bright, almost electric green in the morning sun. These are not just any trees. They are avo willows, and they are the secret to the Chinampa's longevity and stability. In a quirky but brilliant piece of ecological engineering, the Aztecs didn't just use dead wood to build their islands. They planted living fences. The worker carefully selects a sapling from his boat. Holding it gently, he wades to one of the corners of the woven enclosure and pushes the young tree's root ball deep into the lake bed, right alongside the corner post. He repeats this process, planting saplings at regular intervals all along the perimeter of the new Chinampa, just inside the reed wall. The sight is almost poetic, a line of delicate, hopeful trees standing in the water, their reflections wavering on the surface. These are not decorative. They are a critical part of the infrastructure. The abut is a fast-growing willow species native to the region, perfectly adapted to the wet, marshy environment of Lake Texcoco. Its most important quality is its extensive and powerful root system. As these willows grow, their roots will spread and intertwine, weaving themselves through the wattled reeds and deep into the lake bed. They will become a living, breathing, retaining wall. Over time, the original wooden posts and woven reeds will rot away, but the dense network of willow roots will remain, holding the soil of the Chinampa together and anchoring the entire island firmly to the earth. This is the genius of the system. It's a self-repairing, self-strengthening structure. This use of living trees to stabilize man-made land is a perfect example of the Aztecs' symbiotic relationship with their environment. They weren't just building on the lake. They were building with it, using its native life to create a sustainable and resilient agricultural system. Historians still debate the full extent of the Aztecs' botanical knowledge, but the choice of the abot was no accident. The tree is not only functional, but also provides other benefits. Its wood could be coppice, cut back to encourage new growth, providing a sustainable source of timber for tools, firewood, or even for building new Chinampa posts. The leaves and bark were also known to have medicinal properties, a fringe benefit that would not have been lost on the pragmatic Mexica. It was a multi-purpose living tool. You couldn't help but smile at the thought of a modern city planner, suggesting they solve a soil erosion problem by planting a line of strategically placed saplings. They'd likely be laughed out of the room, yet here, it was the very foundation of an empire's food supply. As you watch, you notice the older, established Chinampas that line the canal. Mature avo willows stand like silent sentinels along their edges, their gnarled trunks and graceful, drooping branches providing a gentle, dappled shade over the water. Their roots, now thick and woody, are visible just below the surface, a tangled, powerful web holding the islands in a firm embrace. They are the quiet heroes of this landscape, the living anchors that have allowed these gardens to endure for generations, resisting the slow, persistent pull of erosion and the occasional storm. They also create a unique micro-ecosystem, their shade cooling the water and providing shelter for fish and other aquatic life. The man finishes his work, the last sapling nestled into its watery home. He pulls his boat away, leaving the young trees to begin their slow, vital work. The new Chinampa now has its permanent fence, a living wall that will grow stronger with each passing year. It's a profound concept that the structure is not static but dynamic, a living part of the garden it contains. It is a level of ecological integration that modern green architecture often strives for but rarely achieves with such simple elegance. You look from the newly planted willows to their mature counterparts on the opposite bank. You can see the future of this small, empty rectangle of reeds. You can see it becoming a solid, stable, and enduring piece of the intricate agricultural mosaic that surrounds you. Now that the container is built and its living walls are planted, it is time to fill it. The canoe drifts on, and you can already hear the rhythmic sounds of the next phase beginning just a little further down the waterway. The canoe glides forward, its movement so smooth it feels less like travel and more like the world is simply rearranging itself around you. The gentle paddling resumes, a soft and steady heartbeat on the water. Ahead, the canal widens slightly into a small basin, and the air becomes thick with the rich, unmistakable smell of a freshly turned garden. Here, the next stage of the Chinampas creation is in full, mesmerizing swing. This is where the empty, woven frame becomes a fertile island. It is the moment the garden gets its soul. Several men are at work, not on the land, but from their canoes. Each man wields a long-handled, wooden spade-like tool called a koa. It's a simple but effective instrument designed for a very specific purpose, dredging. With practiced, powerful movements, they drive the koa deep into the lake bed at the bottom of the canal. The motion is fluid, a graceful arc that ends with a deep plunge into the unseen depths. Then comes the effort. Leaning back, using their own body weight as a counterbalance, they lever the tool upwards. The koa emerges from the water laden with a heavy, dripping scoop of dark, almost black mud. This isn't just any mud. This is the sacred treasure of Lake Texcoco. For centuries, the lake had been a basin for accumulating organic matter. A continuous rain of decaying aquatic plants, fish waste, algae, and silt washed down from the surrounding mountains has settled on the bottom, creating a thick, incredibly nutrient-rich layer of sediment. The Aztecs recognized this lake bottom mud as a powerful natural fertilizer, a gift from the water gods. One historical account, often considered a slightly quirky but plausible tidbit, suggests that this mud was so revered that communities would sometimes engage in mud wars, not for territory, but for exclusive rights to dredge particularly fertile sections of the lake bed. It was quite literally black gold. The men in their canoes work with a steady, unhurried rhythm. A scoop, a lift, a pivot, and a plop. With each motion, a dripping mass of this precious mud is tossed from the koa into the newly constructed Chinampa frame. The sound is a series of soft, wet splats, a deeply satisfying noise that speaks of nourishment and potential. Slowly, painstakingly, the empty rectangle begins to fill. The process is like filling a giant planter box, but the soil is sourced from the very waterway that surrounds it. This is another stroke of genius in the Chinampa system. The act of gathering the soil also serves to keep the canals from silting up. Dredging the mud maintains the depth and flow of the waterways, ensuring they remain navigable for canoe traffic. It's a perfect closed-loop system. Building the farms maintains the highways that connect them. You watch as the level of mud inside the woven enclosure rises. First, it's a dark, soupy layer at the bottom. But as more and more scoops are added, it solidifies, the water draining away through the reed walls, leaving behind a damp, dark, and wonderfully fertile soil. The men work together without a word, a silent choreography of effort. One canoe moves away as another takes its place, ensuring a constant, efficient flow of mud. The surface of the new island is now just above the water level, a glistening, dark brown rectangle of pure potential, but they don't stop there. The final layer is composed of decaying aquatic vegetation and other composted material, adding even more nutrients and improving the soil's texture and aeration. Some scholars believe that even human waste from the city, carefully composted, may have been added to the mix, though this remains a point of scholarly debate due to limited archaeological evidence. Regardless, the final result is a bed of soil so fertile it's almost legendary. This incredible fertility allowed for multiple harvests a year, a key factor in how the Chinampas were able to feed such a massive urban population. The men are finishing their work now. They use the flat backs of their koa blades to smooth the surface of the new island, creating a perfectly level planting bed. The Chinampa is complete. It lies there in the morning sun, a dark, damp, and beautiful creation, steaming slightly in the growing warmth. It is a testament to ingenuity, hard work, and a profound respect for the natural cycles of decay and growth. Your guide gives a soft, almost imperceptible nod of approval. The canoe begins to move again, leaving the new island behind to settle and mature. You glide past it, close enough to feel the radiant coolness of its damp earth, and to smell its deep, rich promise of life. Leaving the brand new sleeping Chinampa behind, your guide paddles you further into the green labyrinth. The canals here feel older, more established. The awut willows are thick and gnarled, their branches creating a dappled canopy overhead. The air is alive with the hum of insects and the calls of birds darting between the trees. It feels less like a construction site and more like a mature, living neighborhood of gardens. You drift past island after island, each a vibrant tapestry of green, bursting with life. The canoe slows as you approach one of these islands. It's a family plot, and its residents are already deep into their day's work. There is no sense of rush or frantic energy. Instead, their movements are imbued with a kind of peaceful, rhythmic efficiency. A man, a woman, and a young boy, perhaps 10 years old, are working together in the rich, dark soil. They don't seem to notice your silent passage, so engrossed are they in the familiar tasks that have defined their lives and the lives of their ancestors. The man is using a tool you recognize, the koa, the long-handled digging stick, but here he's not judging. He is using it with a delicate precision, uprooting weeds from around the base of tall maize stalks. With a flick of his wrist, he tosses the weeds into a small pile, which will later be composted back into the soil. Nothing is wasted. His movements are economical and strong, a testament to a lifetime of this work. His back is bent, but it's the strong, flexible bend of a tree that has grown accustomed to the wind, not the brittle curve of one about to break. This is the daily, unending work of maintenance that keeps the gardens productive. The woman is kneeling further down the Chinampa, her hands moving gently among a tangle of green vines. She is harvesting beans, her fingers deftly finding the mature pods and snapping them from the stem with a soft click. Her work is just as vital as the man's. While men were often responsible for the heavy labor of construction and turning the soil, women played a central and powerful role in Aztec agriculture. They were the masters of planting, weeding, and harvesting, holding deep knowledge of seed selection and plant cycles. A mainstream historical fact often overlooked is that women's agricultural labor was not just domestic support. It was a cornerstone of the empire's economic and nutritional foundation. Her movements are a quiet conversation with the plants she tends. The young boy is crouched near the edge of the Chinampa, his small hands carefully cupping water from the canal and pouring it at the base of some young chili plants. It's a small, simple task, but it is his part of the whole. This is how knowledge was passed on, not through books or lectures, but through daily participation. He is learning the feel of the soil, the needs of the plants, the rhythm of the seasons, absorbing the art of Chinampa farming through his very skin. He is an apprentice in the most profound sense, learning the family trade that will one day sustain his own family. It's a much more effective internship than making coffee and running errands. You notice the clever way the plants are arranged. Tall maize stalks provide a natural trellis for climbing bean vines, while broadleaf squash plants spread out below, their large leaves shading the soil, preventing weeds and retaining moisture. This is the famous Three Sisters agricultural system, a sophisticated form of companion planting used by many indigenous peoples across the Americas. The three plants thrive together, supporting and nourishing one another. The beans fix nitrogen in the soil, enriching it for the heavy-feeding maize, while the squash acts as a living mulch. It's a perfect, self-sustaining community of plants, a model of agricultural harmony. As you float by, you can't help but wonder about their lives. Is this small plot of land theirs? Historians continue to discuss the precise nature of Chinampa ownership. Some evidence suggests that the land was controlled by the Kaupoli, the local clan or ward, which would then allot plots to individual families. Other sources hint at a system of private family ownership passed down through generations. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. But watching this family, they work the land with a sense of care and intimacy that feels deeper than a simple rental agreement. They are not just farming a plot, they are tending to their legacy, their pantry, and their home all in one. The canoe picks up a little speed, and the quiet scene of the family at work begins to recede. The sounds of their labor, the scrape of the koa, the rustle of leaves fade back into the general hum of the canals. a single gentle note in the vast green symphony of the Chinampas. Your guide steers the canoe down a particularly narrow channel, the branches of the awa willows from either side nearly touching overhead, forming a cool green tunnel. The light filters down in shimmering, shifting patterns, dancing on the water and on the sides of your canoe. When you emerge back into the open sun, you find yourself alongside a chinampa that looks different from the others. It isn't filled with towering maize or sprawling squash vines. Instead, it is a meticulously organized miniature world of green. This is a nursery. The entire surface of this island is covered with what looks like a vast grid of small, dark mud cubes. Each cube is a perfect hand-molded square, and from the center of each one, a tiny, vibrant green sprout is emerging. This is where the life of the Chinampa crops begins. It's a seedbed, known in the Nahuatl language as a Tenochtitlan, and it is a testament to the Aztecs' highly systematic and efficient approach to agriculture. A man is kneeling on a wooden plank laid across the muddy surface, carefully tending to the seedlings. He is not broadcasting seeds randomly and hoping for the best. Instead, he has taken the fertile lake-bottom mud and shaped it into these small, dense cubes. He would have then pressed a single seed, maize, bean, tomato, or chili into the center of each cube before placing it in the grid. This method offered several ingenious advantages. Firstly, it was incredibly water efficient. The dense mud held moisture for a long time, creating a perfect self-contained germination environment for each seed. This was crucial, as even here in the middle of the lake, managing water resources was key. Secondly, it allowed for precise control over spacing and germination rates. The farmer could easily see which seeds had sprouted successfully and discard any that failed. This ensured that only the strongest, healthiest seedlings would be transplanted, maximizing the potential yield of every Chinampa plot. It was a form of quality control that was centuries ahead of its time. If a seed didn't perform, it was out. No second chances in this tiny, muddy boardroom. This brings up a fascinating, quirky detail about Aztec agriculture, their relationship with their seeds. Seeds were not just inert matter. They were believed to contain a living spirit, a vital force. There were rituals and ceremonies associated with the storing and planting of seeds. Farmers would speak to their seeds, encouraging them to grow strong. The act of pressing a seed into a carefully prepared mud block was an intimate, hopeful gesture, a partnership between the farmer and the life force contained within the seed. As you watch the man at work, you see him lift a small section of the gridded mud on a flat piece of wood. The cubes hold their shape perfectly. He is preparing them for the next stage, transplanting. Once a seedling reached a certain size and strength in the controlled environment of the nursery bed, the entire mud cube would be lifted and moved to a larger permanent chinampa. The cube would be placed into a pre-dug hole, a process that caused minimal shock to the plant's delicate root system. This method is remarkably similar to the peat pots and seed starter trays used by modern gardeners. The Aztecs had essentially created biodegradable, nutrient-rich starter pots thousands of years ago. Historians still debate the full variety of plants that were started in these nursery beds. While staple crops like maize, beans, and squash are well documented, it's believed that a vast array of other plants, from flowers and herbs to medicinal plants, and even fruit trees, all began their lives as tiny sprouts in these carefully tended mud cubes. The nursery Chinampa was the heart of the whole system, the place where the agricultural cycle was renewed, season after season. The canoe drifts past the nursery island, and the sight of those thousands of tiny, perfect sprouts, each one a promise of future harvest, is deeply moving. It speaks of a society that was not just surviving, but planning, innovating, and thriving. They were not simply tossing seeds to the wind. They were carefully nurturing life from its very first moments. You look down the canal and see another canoe, laden with these dark green cubes, being paddled slowly towards a larger Chinampa. The seedlings are on the move, ready to take their place in the vast, productive gardens that feed the empire. The quiet efficiency of it all is breathtaking. Every step is considered, every resource maximized, every plant given the best possible chance to grow. The canoe leaves the sheltered nursery behind and turns into a main canal, a bustling thoroughfare in its own quiet way. Here, the perspective shifts dramatically. You are no longer looking down at tiny sprouts, but craning your neck to look up. On both sides of the waterway, mature Chinampas are planted with towering stalks of maize. The effect is stunning. It's like gliding through a canyon, but the walls are made not of rock, but of living, breathing green. The maize stalks stand well over 2 meters tall. Their long, elegant leaves forming a dense canopy that rustles and whispers in the gentle breeze. The sound is a constant, soothing sigh, like a soft, dry rain. Sunlight filters through the thick leaves, casting a moving, dappled light on the water's surface and warming your shoulders. The air is humid and smells sweet, the unmistakable scent of growing corn. It's an immersive experience, a journey through a miniature forest that has been planted by hand. You trail your fingers in the cool water, watching the distorted reflections of the green stalks slide by. This is the backbone of the Aztec diet, the sacred grain that sustained the empire. Maize, or centli in Nahuatl, was more than just food. It was a divine gift, central to Aztec cosmology and identity. The maize god, Xantiatl, was a major deity, and the agricultural calendar revolved around the planting and harvesting of this single vital crop. To the Aztecs, the life cycle of maize was intimately connected to the life cycle of humanity itself. You can feel that reverence in the meticulous care given to these plants. They stand in perfect straight rows, their thick stalks a testament to the incredibly fertile soil from which they spring. As you glide closer to the edge of one island, you can see the Three Sisters system in its full, mature glory. Climbing up the sturdy maize stalks are the delicate, tenacious vines of beans, their tendrils wrapping around the stalks for support as they reach for the sun. The beans, in turn, pull nitrogen from the air and fix it in the soil, providing the maize with the essential nutrients it needs to thrive. It's a perfect partnership, a natural skyscraper with its own built-in support and maintenance system. Below them, sprawling across the dark, damp earth, are the huge, umbrella-like leaves of squash plants. They shade the soil, keeping it cool and moist, and their prickly vines discourage pests from getting to the maize and beans. It's a closed-loop, self-sufficient ecosystem on a 2-meter wide strip of land. It's so efficient it makes a modern monoculture farm look clumsy and wasteful by comparison. The sheer density of the planting is astounding. From your low vantage point in the canoe, the Chinampa next to you is an impenetrable wall of green. A farmer moving through the rows would disappear completely after just a few steps, swallowed by the rustling leaves. This density was key to the Chinampa's incredible productivity. While historians still debate the precise annual yields, it's generally agreed that the combination of fertile soil, constant water supply, and intensive planting techniques allowed for up to 7 different harvests a year. This level of agricultural output was almost unheard of anywhere else in the world at the time and was absolutely essential for feeding the hundreds of thousands of people living in Tenochtitlan. You notice the diversity within the crop itself. Not all the maize is the familiar yellow. You catch glimpses of cobs with kernels of deep red, speckled blue, and even a dark, dusty black. This is a quirky but important detail. The Aztecs cultivated numerous varieties of maize. Each color had different culinary uses and often different ritual significances. Blue maize might be ground into flour for special ceremonial tortillas, while red maize might be used to brew a specific type of fermented drink. This wasn't just farming for subsistence. It was farming for a complex and sophisticated culture. It makes this standard supermarket selection of sweet corn seem laughably limited. The canoe continues its slow, hypnotic journey through this canyon of corn. The rustling of the leaves, the gentle creak of the stalks in the breeze, and the rhythmic dip of the paddle create a profoundly peaceful soundscape. For a few minutes, this is the whole world. The green walls, the dark water, and the warm sun. It's a moment of pure agricultural immersion. Then the canal begins to widen, the towering walls of maize recede, and you glide out into a more open intersection of waterways. The view opens up, revealing Chinampas dedicated to a whole new palette of colors and smells. A reminder that while maize was the king, its kingdom was filled with a rich and varied court. As the canoe emerges from the tall, rustling corridor of maize, the landscape opens up and the air immediately changes. The sweet, grassy scent of corn gives way to a complex and vibrant perfume. It's as if you've turned a page in a book of scents. The sun feels warmer here, no longer filtered by the high leaves, and it illuminates a series of lower, more colorful gardens that are buzzing with life. The first new fragrance to greet you is sharp, green, and slightly spicy. You glide past a chinampa dedicated entirely to chili peppers. The plants are low and bushy, and they are absolutely laden with peppers of every conceivable shape and color. There are tiny, fiery red ones that look like little jewels, long, elegant green ones that curve gracefully, and plump yellow ones that glow in the sun. The sheer variety is dizzying. Chiles were a fundamental part of the Aztec diet, providing not just heat, but a depth of flavor to countless dishes. You can almost imagine the future salsa bubbling away at a stone molcajit. Given the Aztec appreciation for intense flavors, their mild version of hot sauce would probably be considered a chemical weapon by modern standards. A gentle breeze wafts across the water, carrying the scent from the plants. It's not the burning heat of the dried chili, but the fresh, vegetal aroma of the living plant itself, a promise of the fire contained within. Bees and other pollinators drift lazily from one glossy pepper to another, their low hum a constant soothing undertone to the scene. Your guide steers you past the chili patch, and a new sight comes into view, a tangle of vines heavy with plump, red and yellow fruit. These are Xochimilco, the ancestor of the modern tomato. They are smaller and more varied in shape than the perfectly uniform spheres you find in a supermarket. Some are oval, some are slightly ribbed, and their colors range from a pale, sunny yellow to a deep blood red. The plants have a distinct earthy smell, a mix of green leaves and ripe fruit that is both sweet and slightly acidic. The tomatoes are not staked up in neat rows, but are allowed to sprawl across the rich, dark soil, their vines intertwining in a chaotic but fruitful embrace. Seeing them here in their ancestral home, you realize you're looking at the origin of a flavor that would one day conquer the world, a humble chinampa fruit destined for global culinary stardom. Beyond the tomatoes lies a sight of such intense, shocking color that it almost doesn't look real. It is a field of gold. A whole chinampa is dedicated to growing cempasúchil, the Aztec marigold. The flowers are a brilliant, explosive burst of orange and yellow, their ruffled heads held high on sturdy stems. The scent is overwhelming, a pungent, musky, and strangely beautiful aroma that fills the air completely. These were not grown merely for their beauty. This is a sacred flower. The cempasúchil was, and still is, deeply connected to Aztec rituals for honoring the dead. Its vibrant color and powerful scent were believed to act as a beacon, guiding the spirits of departed loved ones back to the world of the living during special ceremonies. This is a mainstream historical fact that lives on today in the modern traditions of Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, where these same marigolds are used to decorate altars and gravesites. Floating past this radiant field of gold, you feel the cultural weight of the plant. It's a garden of memory, a bridge between the living and the dead, its beauty tinged with a deep spiritual significance. Next to this field of sun-colored flowers is another patch that's just as striking, but for different reasons. Here, tall plants with feathery deep red plumes stand against the sky. This is amaranth, another Aztec superfood. This plant offers a truly fascinating, quirky tidbit of history. Amaranth was not only a vital source of protein, but its seeds were also ground into a flour and mixed with honey or agave syrup to create a dough. This dough was used to form statues of the gods, which were then broken apart and eaten during religious ceremonies. When the Spanish arrived, they were horrified by this ritual, seeing it as a satanic parody of the Christian Eucharist. They banned the cultivation of amaranth, and this incredibly important crop was nearly lost forever. Seeing it growing here, its crimson flowers waving defiantly, feels like witnessing a small act of cultural survival. Of course, not everything is visible on the surface. Archaeologists and ethnobotanists still debate how extensively root vegetables were integrated into the Chinampa system itself. While crops like jicama and sweet potato were staples of the Aztec diet, the ever-damp soil of the Chinampas might not have been ideal for all of them. Perhaps they were grown on the drier edges or on mainland plots and then brought into the city. It's one of those soft-edged mysteries that reminds you that this world, as vivid as it seems, still holds its secrets. The canoe moves on, leaving the gardens of spice and color behind, but their vibrant, complex perfume lingers in the air long after they have passed from sight. The canoe rounds a bend, leaving the quiet, dedicated plots of spices and flowers, and enters what feels like a major artery of the canal system. The waterway here is wider, bustling with a quiet, steady traffic. This is a highway, and the vehicles are all canoes, ranging from small, one-person vessels to larger, heavier craft piled high with goods. It's a vision of a city's logistics, a complex network of trade and transport that is entirely water-based. You feel a sense of gentle motion all around you. Your canoe falls into the slow, steady rhythm of the traffic, a silent, floating procession. A canoe glides past you in the opposite direction, pulled by a man standing at its stern. It is laden with a pyramid of freshly harvested maize, the green husks still dewy in the morning sun. The pile is so high, it's a small miracle of balance. The man navigates with a serene, focused expression, his paddle dipping into the water with an unhurried grace that belies the weight of his cargo. He is on his way to the great market of Tlatelolco, the economic heart of Tenochtitlan, where this corn will be sold or bartered. Another canoe follows, this one much larger and piled with neat stacks of firewood, a precious commodity in a city built on a lake. Two men paddle this heavier craft, their movements synchronized, their bodies working in a silent, coordinated rhythm. The scene is a perfect illustration of the Chinampa system's dual function. It was not only a place of production, but was also seamlessly integrated into the empire's distribution network. Everything that was grown here, from the staple foods to specialty goods, could be loaded directly onto a canoe and transported to the city's markets with an efficiency that land-based transport with its reliance on human porters can never match. This waterborne transportation system was a key factor in Tenochtitlan's ability to sustain its dense population, a mainstream historical fact that underscores the brilliance of its urban design. You see a woman paddling a small canoe filled with cages made of woven reeds. Inside, ducks and turkeys rustle and call out softly. They too are destined for the market. The sounds of the animals, a soft quacking and gobbling, add another layer to the canal's rich soundscape. The efficiency of the system is truly something to behold. There are no traffic jams, no shouting, no road rage. There is just a steady, fluid movement of goods and people. It makes you think of modern city traffic with a sense of mild despair. The Aztecs had solved the problem of urban logistics with water, wood, and muscle. A particularly interesting canoe approaches, this one carrying not produce, but people. It's a passenger ferry of sorts, a longer, more elegant canoe with a small, arched canopy of woven palm leaves to provide shade. Several figures in fine cotton clothing sit beneath it, their faces calm and composed. They are likely merchants or officials traveling from one part of the city to another. This is the Aztec version of a water taxi, and it highlights the social stratification that existed even here on the canals. While most of the traffic is agricultural and functional, there is also room for a more comfortable class of travel. It's a quirky but telling detail. Even in this seemingly egalitarian network of waterways, status still finds a way to express itself. The question of how this traffic was regulated is a subject of ongoing scholarly debate. Were there designated fast lanes for official canoes? Were there rules about right-of-way at the countless intersections of the canals? There's little direct evidence, but the smooth, orderly flow of traffic suggests a deeply ingrained, shared understanding of how to navigate this complex system. It was likely a set of unwritten rules, a water-based etiquette learned from childhood and practiced every day. As your canoe drifts along this liquid highway, you feel part of something ancient and incredibly sophisticated. You are in the midst of a living, breathing supply chain. The goods floating past you, the food, the fuel, the livestock, are the lifeblood of Tenochtitlan. The canals are the veins and arteries, carrying this lifeblood from the green heart of the Chinampas to the stone body of the city. You see another canoe piled high with brilliant orange marigolds, the same flowers you saw earlier. The sight of that floating patch of sunshine on its way to a temple or a family altar is a beautiful reminder that this network carried not just the necessities of life, but also the essentials of culture, faith, and beauty. The steady rhythm of the paddling all around you is hypnotic, a communal heartbeat that drives the silent, efficient engine of an empire. Word count 1061. Your guide steers the canoe away from the main, bustling channel and into a quieter, more secluded tributary. The water here is clearer, calmer. The dense shade from the overhanging awa willows creates a cool, dim atmosphere. It feels like you've entered a secret world, a place tucked away from the agricultural industry and canoe traffic. This is where you can truly appreciate the Chinampas not just as farms, but as a rich and unique ecosystem. The water's surface is a perfect dark mirror, reflecting the gnarled willow branches and the deep green leaves of the surrounding plants. As you peer into the depths, you see that the water is teeming with life. Small, silvery fish dart through the submerged roots of the willows, their scales flashing as they catch a stray beam of light. A turtle, its shell a mosaic of dark green and yellow, suns itself on a half-submerged log, its ancient, wrinkled head held high. It watches your canoe pass with an air of supreme indifference before sliding silently into the water with a soft plop. Your guide lets the canoe drift, its momentum carrying it slowly forward. They point a single, steady finger towards the water near the bank. You follow their gesture, your eyes scanning the dark water. At first, you see nothing but the reflection of the leaves. Then, a slight movement catches your eye. A creature emerges from the shadows of the roots. It is one of the most remarkable and iconic inhabitants of Lake Texcoco, the axolotl. It looks like a half-finished lizard, a creature from a dream. Its body is a pale, translucent pink, and it has a feathery, external gill structure that fans out from its head like a bizarre, frilly mane. Its eyes are small and dark, without lids, giving it a wide-eyed, perpetually surprised expression. And most famously, it appears to be smiling. This is the water dog of the Aztecs, a species of salamander that, in a quirky evolutionary twist, never undergoes metamorphosis. It lives its entire life in this larval, aquatic state, a permanent Peter Pan of the amphibian world. The axolotl moves with a slow, deliberate grace, its tail gently propelling it through the water. It is a creature perfectly adapted to this unique, man-made environment. The shaded, calm waters of the Chinampa canals provided an ideal habitat, rich in the small insects, crustaceans, and worms that made up its diet. The Aztecs revered the axolotl. It was associated with the god Xolotl, the twin of Quetzalcoatl, who, according to legend, transformed himself into an axolotl to escape being sacrificed. It was seen as a creature of transformation and resilience. A mainstream historical fact is that the axolotl was not just a mythological figure. It was also a source of food, considered a delicacy by the Aztec nobility. Seeing it here, in its natural, ancestral habitat, feels like a rare privilege. The axolotl's ability to regenerate is legendary. It can regrow entire lost limbs, parts of its brain, and even its spinal cord without scarring. This incredible biological feature makes it a subject of intense scientific study today. As you watch the small, smiling creature disappear back into the shadows, you can't help but feel a sense of wonder at its strange beauty and its incredible powers of survival. The canals are home to more than just the iconic axolotl. You hear the sharp, rattling call of a kingfisher and a flash of iridescent blue streaks across the canal in front of you. A great egret, its plumage a brilliant snowy white, stands perfectly still in the shallows, its long neck poised, hunting for fish. The sheer biodiversity of this man-made landscape is astounding. Historians and ecologists still debate the full impact the Chinampa system had on the lake's original ecosystem. Did it enhance biodiversity by creating new habitats, or did it disrupt the natural balance? The evidence seems to suggest a complex mix of both. While some native species may have struggled, many others, like the birds, turtles, and fish you see, clearly thrived in this new, fertile environment. A cloud of dragonflies, their wings a transparent, shimmering filigree, hovers over a patch of water lilies. The pads of the lily are a deep, glassy green, and their white and pink flowers stand open to the sun. This quiet, secluded corner of the canal system is a sanctuary. It's a reminder that the Chinampas were not a sterile monoculture. They were a complex, integrated system where agriculture and nature coexisted, where humans, plants, fish, and even smiling, regenerating salamanders all shared the same watery home. The gentle hum of life is all around you, a testament to the rich world that flourished in the spaces between the gardens. The canoe drifts out of the quiet, wildlife-rich inlet and back into a wider channel. The scenery changes once again. The air, which had been thick with the earthy smells of mud and vegetation, now carries a new senna, sweet, heady perfume that is almost intoxicating. You are floating alongside Chinampas that are not dedicated to food, but to flowers. The sight is breathtaking, a riot of color so intense it feels like the landscape has been painted by a divine hand. You glide past an island covered in dahlias, they're complex. Geometric blooms ranging in color from the deepest, velvety crimson to the palest, most delicate lavender. The dahlia is native to this region and was cultivated by the Aztecs long before it became a prized ornamental in European gardens. For the Aztecs, flowers were not just decoration. They were an essential part of their social, political, and religious lives. A mainstream historical fact is that flowers were used extensively in diplomatic encounters. Ambassadors arriving at Tenochtitlan would be greeted with elaborate garlands, and the quality and rarity of the flowers offered were a direct reflection of the host's respect and power. A poor offering of flowers could be seen as a grave insult. Further on, a chinampa is a sea of white. It is planted with a flower that blooms at night, its long, white petals unfurling in the darkness and releasing a powerful, sweet scent. These are likely a species of tuberose or a similar night-blooming plant, grown specifically for their perfume, which would have been used in ceremonies or to scent the homes of the nobility. The thought of this canal on a moonlit night, filled with the ghostly white of these flowers and their incredible fragrance, is a powerful one. It's a sensory world that is almost impossible to fully imagine. You see a family at work here, just as you did on the maize plots, but their tasks are different. A woman is carefully cutting the long stems of dahlias, her movements precise so as not to damage the precious blooms. A young girl follows behind her, gathering the cut flowers into her arms, forming a massive, colorful bouquet. These flowers are not being harvested for subsistence, but for tribute, for the market, or for the temples. Flower cultivation was a highly specialized and respected profession. The Xochimilco, or flower workers, were considered skilled artisans. They didn't just grow flowers. They understood the art of arrangement, the language of color, and the deep symbolic meanings attached to each different bloom. The variety is astounding. You see patches of bright yellow tagates, clusters of purple salvias, and the delicate, bell-shaped flowers of a native fuchsia species. A particularly quirky detail of Aztec flower culture was the flower war, or Xochimilco. These were not actual wars, but highly ritualized, prearranged battles between different city-states. The primary objective was not to kill or conquer, but to capture warriors for sacrifice. The name itself, Flower War, is a poetic metaphor, comparing the fleeting life of a warrior to the brief, beautiful life of a flower. This deep, symbolic connection between flowers and warfare, beauty and death, is a window into the complex, often paradoxical worldview of the Aztecs. Historians still debate the full economic scale of the Chinampa flower industry. Was it a luxury market controlled by the elite, or were flowers accessible to all levels of society? While nobles and priests were certainly the biggest consumers, evidence from art and poetry suggests that flowers played a role in the daily lives of common people as well, used in personal offerings, small celebrations, and for simple adornment. Your canoe drifts past a barge being pulled towards the city. It is piled so high with flowers that it looks like a floating garden itself. A mountain of golden marigolds, crimson dahlias, and white tuberoses, all on their way to adorn a temple pyramid, or to be woven into the elaborate headdresses of priests and warriors. The sight is one of incredible, almost extravagant beauty. It's a powerful reminder that the Chinampas fed not only the Aztec body, but also the Aztec soul. They nourished a culture that was deeply attuned to the natural world, a culture that saw in the brief, vibrant life of a flower a reflection of the cosmos itself. The sweet, heavy perfume of the flower gardens follows you as you glide away, a fragrant ghost that lingers long after the colors have faded from view. The canoe continues its serene journey, and as you become more attuned to the subtle details of the landscape, you begin to notice the different ages of the Chinampas. Some are bright green and bursting with new growth, like the ones you saw being planted. Others have the stately, mature presence of the tall maize fields. And then there are others that look older, more weathered. The willow trees along their banks are ancient and heavy, and the soil level seems slightly lower, more compacted. It is next to one of these venerable, older islands that your guide slows the canoe to a near stop. Here, you witness a different kind of labor. It is not the dramatic creation of a new island or the vibrant harvest of flowers and fruit. This is the quiet, unending, and absolutely essential work of maintenance. A man is standing on the edge of his chinampa, his back to you, performing a task you now recognize. He is dredging mud from the bottom of the canal with his long-handled koa, but he is not filling a new enclosure. Instead, he is carefully spreading the dark, wet soil over the surface of his existing garden, right between the rows of mature vegetable plants. This is the secret to the Chinampa's legendary, seemingly inexhaustible fertility. The islands, for all their stability, were not static. Over time, the rich soil would compact under its own weight and the constant tending. The island would slowly sink, its surface getting closer and closer to the water table. Simultaneously, the organic material that gave the soil its incredible richness would be consumed by the hungry crops. The earth, in a sense, would get tired. The Aztecs understood this intuitively. They knew that the garden needed to be fed, just like the people it nourished. So the cycle was endless. A family would harvest their crops, and then they would begin the work of rejuvenating the land. The dredging of the canals was not a one-time event during construction. It was a constant seasonal task. This continuous addition of a fresh layer of nutrient-rich mud from the lake bottom ensured that the soil never became depleted. It was a perfect, sustainable system of self-fertilization. It makes modern reliance on chemical fertilizers seem like a clumsy, short-sighted solution. Why buy fertilizer when you have a literal subscription service for nutrient-rich mud delivered to your doorstep, or rather, your canoe step? This constant labor raises a question that historians still actively debate. Who was responsible for the major upkeep? While a family could certainly manage the top dressing of their own small plot, the dredging of the main canals to maintain their depth would have been a massive undertaking. Was this a communal responsibility organized by the local Kalpoli clan, with families contributing a form of labor tax? Or were some individuals specialized dredgers trading their services for produce? The answer is likely a complex mix, reflecting the Aztecs' flexible and pragmatic approach to social organization. You also notice another man working on the same island near the corner. He is repairing the bank itself. The original woven reed wall, the China Needle, has long since rotted away, replaced by the dense network of awot roots. But even this living wall needs tending. The man is carefully weaving new, flexible reeds into a section where the bank has slightly eroded, reinforcing it. He is also trimming some of the lower branches of the willow, a process that both encourages healthy growth and provides him with useful material. A chinampa was like a living house. It needed constant patching and mending to keep it strong. This scene gives you a profound appreciation for the sheer amount of work that went into this system. A chinampa was never finished. It was a living, breathing entity that existed in a constant state of flux, always being built, harvested, replenished, and repaired. It was a partnership with the lake that required continuous effort and attention. This wasn't a plant and forget style of farming. It was a deep, daily engagement with the earth and water. The quiet, rhythmic work of the man spreading fresh mud on his land is the heartbeat of the entire system. It is the act that ensures the gardens will continue to feed the city, year after year, generation after generation. The canoe drifts on, leaving the man to his timeless task of feeding the earth, a silent, humble god tending his creation. As the canoe ride continues, your perception of the landscape begins to shift. You've seen the intimate details, the planting of a single tree, the tending of one family plot, the careful creation of a seedling cube. But now, as your guide expertly navigates through a series of wider canals, the canoe ride becomes a slow, meditative lesson in scale. You begin to see it not as a series of individual gardens, but as one single, sprawling organism, a living, liquid tapestry of green and brown that stretches in every direction, seemingly to the horizon. For every canoe you see, you realize there are 100 more in canals just out of sight. For every field of maize you pass, there are 1,000 others, all rustling in the same gentle breeze. You start to grasp the sheer, staggering magnitude of this agricultural enterprise. This isn't a collection of quaint kitchen gardens. This is an industrial-scale food production system built entirely from mud, wood, and human ingenuity. All of this, every stalk of corn, every handful of beans, every fiery chili, every fragrant flower is destined for the insatiable heart of the empire, Tenochtitlan. In the distance, you can see the city's profile more clearly now. The sun is higher, and the great pyramids of the Templo Mayor and the surrounding palaces stand sharply against the blue sky. It is a city of stone, a monumental achievement of architecture and power, but its foundations are not stone. Its foundations are mud. The greatness of Tenochtitlan, its ability to support a population that historians estimate to be larger than any European city of the time, was entirely dependent on the humble, relentless productivity of these Chinampas. Every stone laid in those pyramids, every soldier sent to a distant war, every priest who performed a sacred rite was fed by this vast green engine. This is a mainstream historical fact that is easy to state, but difficult to truly comprehend. The Chinampas were the breadbasket, the pantry, and the lifeline for hundreds of thousands of souls. As you watch another canoe laden with squash glide past, you're not just seeing lunch. You're seeing the fuel for civilization. The sheer volume of traffic hints at a complex economy. You can imagine a quirky, informal marketplace springing up at the busier intersections of the canals. Picture it, a woman and her canoe, filled with freshly caught fish, might paddle up alongside a farmer whose vessel is overflowing with avocados. Without ever leaving their boats, they could barter, their voices low and conversational. A handful of chiles traded for a string of fish, a woven basket for a pile of sweet tomatoes. These small, floating exchanges would have been the lifeblood of the local economy, a micro-market happening in the shadow of the great Tlatelolco market on the mainland. But this incredible productivity also raises questions that historians and archaeologists continue to puzzle over. How was all of this food managed? When there was a surplus harvest, where did it go? Did the state operate vast granaries to store food for lean times or to feed the army, as the Incas did in the Andes? Or did the Calpulli clans manage their own communal stores? Perhaps the market system was so efficient that storage was less of a concern. The evidence is fragmented, hidden in the ruins and the brief, often biased accounts of the Spanish. The logistics of feeding a city this size, without wheeled vehicles or beasts of burden, remains a subject of intense scholarly fascination. The rhythm of the paddles all around you, the soft dip, the long pull, the quiet drip of water is the steady, tireless pulse of a city feeding itself. You feel like a single blood cell flowing through the green arteries of a giant sleeping creature. The scale of it all is humbling. It is a testament to what a community can achieve when it works in perfect harmony with its environment. This wasn't a system imposed on the landscape, but one that grew out of it, a conversation between human need and natural abundance that lasted for centuries. Looking again towards the distant city, you understand. The Chinampas were not the suburbs of Tenochtitlan. They were its beating green heart. The relentless energy of the sun begins to soften. The light, which had been a brilliant direct white at midday, now shifts to a warm liquid gold. It slants across the canals at a low angle, stretching the shadows of the awot willows into long, dark fingers that stroke the surface of the water. The air, once thick with the heat of the afternoon, begins to cool, carrying with it the fresh, clean scent of damp earth and the memory of the day's fragrances. The frantic, productive hum of the Chinampas begins to fade, replaced by a deep, resonant calm. The traffic on the canals has thinned. The great cargo canoes, piled high with the day's harvest, have mostly completed their journeys to the city. The few boats you see now are smaller, carrying families home after a long day's work. You watch a canoe glide past, a father and his 2 sons, their faces tired but content. Their paddles dip into the water with a slower, more languid rhythm. There's no urgency now, the work is done. The rhythm of life here, for nearly everyone, was dictated by the sun. This is a mainstream historical fact that is fundamental to understanding pre-industrial societies. Without effective artificial lighting, the day ended when the light did. The setting sun was the great communal signal to cease labor and turn towards home, hearth, and rest. You watch as the sun itself begins its final, majestic descent. The western sky ignites in a breathtaking display of color. Fiery oranges bleed into soft pinks, which in turn dissolve into deep, bruised purples at the zenith. The water, a perfect mirror, captures this celestial fire, so it feels as though you are floating not on a canal, but on the sky itself. The maize stalks, which had been a vibrant green, are now transformed into stark, black silhouettes against the brilliant backdrop. The golden heads of the marigolds seem to glow with their own internal light, a final defiant burst of color before the darkness falls. As the last sliver of the sun disappears below the distant volcanic peaks that rim the valley, a new soundscape begins to emerge. The calls of the daytime birds fade away, replaced by the chirping symphony of crickets and the deep, resonant chorus of frogs from the marshy banks. It's a sound that is both calming and intensely alive, the nocturnal heartbeat of the lake waking up. You can hear the soft splash of a fish jumping somewhere in the darkness, its brief, silvery arc unseen. It is in this twilight hour, this liminal space between day and night, that the world feels most magical. A quirky but poignant aspect of Aztec cosmology was their reverence for the planet Venus, which they watched with keen astronomical precision. As the evening star, it was associated with Quetzalcoatl's twin Xolotl, the same god who took the form of an axolotl. For the Aztecs, the evening was not an ending, but a transformation, a time when the world of spirits drew closer to the world of mortals. Floating here in the deepening dusk, it is easy to understand that feeling. The world does feel thin, mysterious, and full of ancient secrets. Your guide pulls the canoe into a small, sheltered alcove, the nose of the boat bumping softly against the roots of an ancient willow. They pull the paddle from the water and lay it silently across the canoe. The journey for today is over. You can see the faint, flickering orange glow of a hearth fire from a small hut on the nearby Chinampa. A family is gathered inside, their soft voices a low, unintelligible murmur. What did they do in these quiet hours? This is a question that fascinates historians. The archaeological record gives us clues about their home's small, one-room structures of wattle and daub, but it can't tell us about the texture of their evenings. Did they gather around the fire and tell stories of the gods and heroes? Did women spin cotton or mend clothes in the fading light? Or was the exhaustion of the day so complete that they simply ate their evening meal, likely a simple stew or some tortillas, and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep? The nature of family life and privacy in such close communal quarters remains a topic of gentle scholarly debate, a quiet space for the imagination to wander. You sit in the stillness, the canoe rocking ever so gently. The cool night air settles around you. Above, the sky is now a deep, velvety black, scattered with a breathtaking spray of stars, brighter than you have ever seen them, undimmed by the glare of modern cities. The silence is profound, broken only by the frogs, the crickets, and the gentle lapping of water against the boat. The day is done. The great green engine has fallen quiet, resting, replenishing itself, ready for the dawn. You remain in the quiet alcove, the canoe a silent observer in the profound darkness. Time seems to dissolve. There's only the cool night air, the star-dusted water, and the gentle, rhythmic chorus of the frogs. The city of Tenochtitlan is now just a distant, sleeping shadow, its great fires banked, its monumental stones holding the day's warmth long into the night. Here on the Chinampas, the world feels ancient, elemental. It feels eternal, but, it is not. This magnificent, intricate world, this perfect symbiosis of water and land, is a ghost. As you float in the darkness, your mind drifts across time. You think of the centuries of patient labor that built this place, the generations of families who lived and died by the rhythm of the canals, whose hands shaped this earth. You think of the arrival of the Spanish, men from a world that did not understand this delicate balance. They saw the great city, a marvel of engineering, and they conquered it. A mainstream historical fact is that after the conquest of the Aztec Empire in 1521, the Spanish began the systematic process of draining Lake Texcoco. They saw the water not as a life-giving partner, but as a problem, a flood risk, an obstacle to the kind of European-style city they wanted to build. With each passing decade, the Great Lake shrank. The canals that had been the lifeblood of the Chinampas began to dry up, their water levels falling, their fertile mud exposed and turning to dust. The Chinampa system, which required a specific stable water level to function, began to fail. The ancient rhythms were broken. The knowledge, passed down through generations, of how to build and tend these gardens began to fade. The families who had lived here for centuries were forced to adapt to a new, drier world, or to move away entirely. It is a slow, quiet tragedy. There was no single dramatic moment of destruction for the Chinampas. They simply, slowly faded away. The forests of maize were replaced by dusty fields. The canals turned into stagnant ditches, then into muddy roads, and finally were paved over completely. The city of Tenochtitlan was buried, and upon its ruins, Mexico City was built, a sprawling, land-based metropolis that turned its back on the water that had given its predecessor life. A quirky, sad detail of this transformation is that the axolotl, the smiling water dog that had thrived in the Chinampa canals, became a symbol of this loss. With its habitat destroyed, its population plummeted. Today, the axolotl is critically endangered, surviving almost exclusively in captivity. It is a living relic, a biological ghost of a lost world. Today, only a tiny, fragile remnant of the vast Chinampa system survives, primarily in the southern borough of Xochimilco in Mexico City. Here, you can still find canals, willow trees, and floating gardens, but it is a shadow of its former self. It is a tourist attraction, a place where brightly colored boats carry visitors through the remaining waterways. While these last Chinampas are a precious link to the past, historians and environmentalists debate their long-term viability. They are threatened by urban sprawl, water pollution, and the sinking of the Mexico City Valley, problems caused by the very decision to drain the lake centuries ago. The legacy of the Chinampas is a complex one. It is a story of incredible ingenuity and ecological wisdom, but also a cautionary tale about the fragility of even the most sophisticated systems when confronted with a worldview that does not comprehend their value. Your guide finally breaks the long silence. Their voice is low, a soft whisper that seems to be a part of the night itself. They speak not of history or tragedy, but of the frogs, of the stars, of the name of the wind that is rustling the leaves of the old willow tree above you. They are rooted in this place, a living continuation of the world you have been visiting. With a slow, deliberate movement, they dip the paddle back into the water. The canoe glides out of the alcove and begins the slow journey back, not towards the stone city of the past, but towards the waking world of the present. The stars above you seem to flicker like distant memories. You carry with you the scent of wet earth, the sound of the rustling maize, the image of a smiling salamander. You have been a guest in a lost world, a floating dream of a city that was fed by gardens born from the water. And as you drift away, you understand that while the empire may have fallen, the quiet genius of the Chinampas still whispers its story to anyone who is willing to listen. The gentle lapping of the water against the side of the canoe becomes a soft, rhythmic lullaby, a sound that seems to slow your own breathing, inviting a deep and profound restfulness. The stories of the canals, the whispers of the ajo trees, and the memories of the maize fields begin to blend and soften, their sharp edges dissolving into a warm, pleasant haze in your mind. The canoe itself seems to grow heavier, more peaceful, its gentle rocking a steady and reassuring anchor in the calm, dark waters of your growing drowsiness. There is no need to think about the complexities of history now, no need to hold on to the names or the dates. All that matters is the feeling of being gently carried, of being supported by the cool water and the even cooler night air. Each stroke of the distant paddle is a soft suggestion to let go, to release the weight of the day and allow yourself to drift into a state of deep and untroubled sleep. The stars above begin to blur into soft points of light, their distant fire a gentle and fading glow. As you feel yourself sinking into the comfortable, quiet darkness, a safe and peaceful harbor at the end of a long and gentle journey. The world of the Chinampas fades into the peaceful landscape of your dreams, leaving only a feeling of calm, a sense of quiet wonder, and the soft, steady rhythm of the water carrying you now into the silent, welcoming depths of sleep.